Does LSU's win over Ole Miss make LSU a legit playoff contender?
Get ready for the 3-point stance. 3 different minds, 3 different opinions. 3 dudes talking ball. It's Kenton. It's Jay. It's Zach. Time to bring the heat, boys.
Yes, it's a 3-point stance. Zach Blackerby, Kenton Gibbs hanging out with you today. We'll talk about who is off when you look at the top 25, as well as, hey, Oregon and Ohio State. To me, it proved exactly what we thought going into the game. But, Kenton, let's start with LSU and Ole Miss, one of the many electric games from this past weekend. Absolute clutch performance by LSU to force overtime, then win the thing. Is LSU now a favorite in your mind to make the college football playoff?
You know, they have an inside track.
Yeah.
They have an inside track because this game to me, and I know that we were supposed to get to this later, but just because of how this sets up, this happens to be the most impactful win of the weekend. Yeah. Because you are looking at 2 teams that this ain't necessarily that moment where you're saying, oh, these 2 teams are good. They're all right. This is whatever happens, most likely 9 times out of 10, these 2 teams are going to make it. This was kind of a battle of 2 teams that you feel like they're on the fringe. I'm not guaranteeing both a spot. Both of these teams can do something to flub it up. But this game right here and the way in which LSU won it was so interesting to me because don't get me wrong, a domination is always the best thing. A domination always puts you in that position where, oh, we got to stand up. You're
not going to be able to do that every week, though. That's just not going to happen every week. Yeah,
and that's what I'm saying. And the only other way that you can win it that gives you something, a little bit of a boost, is to have a signature moment, right? Yeah. It's not to kind of, oh man, we got up early and then they came back and they just missed the field goal that kept us from winning or that kept us from losing it. It's a moment like this where you're looking at, what was it, 4th and 12, 4th and 13, something like that LSU had to convert to then score a touchdown on that play. When you're inside the red zone, it's kind of amazing. It's one of those moments that if this LSU team does what they're supposed to do, hold serve for the rest of the season, and they can very well make the playoff without making the SEC championship game, which they most likely will not, they will end up looking back at this saying, this was the game that gave us the opportunity. This was the game that opened the door, whether they win it or not.
They've got an interesting stretch here coming up. This weekend they play at Arkansas, and we've seen Arkansas, the way Arkansas played against Tennessee earlier this year, Arkansas not backing down. Yeah, they're not backing down in Fayetteville. But then they go to Texas A&M, which is a team that I'm kind of believing in right now. And then after an off week, they play Alabama. This is a brutal 3-game stretch, I think, for LSU.
Yeah, and that's why I said this doesn't guarantee either of these teams a spot. This doesn't guarantee. This game did not say, hey, the winner of this game, I already know. Signed, sealed, delivered. It's yours. That playoff spot is right there. No, it's not that type of case, but it did say, of these 2 teams, this felt like an elimination game. And there will be other elimination games going forward, but the clear consensus coming out of this one is LSU won the elimination game. They won the game that will most likely be the barrier to entry in terms of how many bids do you think the SEC gets at?
4, just shooting from the hip. I would say 4 right now.
Okay, so we give you 4. You got Texas, you got Georgia, you got, I'd say Bama. I'd say Bama's comfortably in there, and now that leaves you with 1. That leaves you with all of these teams circling that 1. That leaves you with Ole Miss. That leaves you with Tennessee. That leaves you with Texas A&M. That leaves you with all of these teams circling that last spot in terms of the bids that the SEC is going to get. And they're getting some help because some of the other conferences are not playing as well in terms of looking at you, ACC, 2-bid lead right now. But even with that, you still have the Big 12 where multiple teams are playing excellent football. You can't deny what a lot of these teams are doing. So I look at this game and I say to myself, this may not have been a de facto play-in game for the winner, but it definitely was for the loser.
Yeah, so let's pivot this and talk about Ole Miss now. A team that is off this week, but then plays Oklahoma. They go to Arkansas. We just mentioned how tricky that Arkansas team is.
Right.
And they play Georgia. I'm not necessarily worried about at Florida and then the Egg Bowl against Mississippi State. But Ole Miss, like, if they want to do this, they have to be perfect the rest of the way. And with all the rumors and smoke around Lane Kiffin, I just don't think that's going to happen.
I will take it a step further. Remember what you and me talked about to start off this show? What's the best way to win in terms of the college football playoff? Ole Miss has to be dominant from this point forward. There has to not be another game that's within 10 points for them to have even an outside shot looking in here. And is it right? Is it fair? Because we're looking at an Ole Miss team with what, 2 losses at this point, and we're saying, hey, if you do not win out dominantly, you will end up behind some other 2-loss teams. But it's just the reality that the way this shakes out, we know that the CFP voters are a lot like Andre 3000. And what's that? The saying, you're only funky as your last cut. And so with that being said, you're going to have the CFP voters saying, well, a win over Mississippi State, does that move you? You'll take that deal? They won't take that deal. Well, a win over who do they have before Mississippi State? A win over who was that now?
Ole Miss. They'll play Florida.
A win over Florida, who probably won't have their head coach because that's at the tail end of that brutal stretch, that brutal November. I mean, the nastiest November I've ever seen here for Florida. So you're looking at a situation where you're probably going to be playing a rudderless ship in Mississippi State. I don't think that moves people unless you run the table and show everybody, hey, those big games were the exception. Because Lane Kiffin, as much as I talk about Brian Kelly wetting the bed, Lane Kiffin said, I'm going to get the bed even worse, okay? I'm going to have to change my whole house out because it might flood out from all the bed wetting I do. And what an embarrassment on him to blow it down the stretch here.
The drama of Ole Miss going to Florida, especially if Billy Napier has been fired at that point. How many times is Lane Kiffin going to be asked, hey, are you going to be here next year? You going to be here next year?
How's Danville treat you? We gonna leave an extra little mint on your pillow. You know what I mean? Come on, Lane. Let's talk some business. Let's talk some business. You know, I know that Mississippi is all right, but I think Florida's a little nicer. I'm just saying. I never heard nobody say I'm retiring to Mississippi.
I don't think so.
I'm retiring to Florida.
A lot of people do it. A lot of people do it. No doubt. All right. So, which win was more impressive? Texas's win over Oklahoma, or what Oregon did to Ohio State? That's coming up next on the 3-Point Stance.
And folks, I know that we're talking about all of these big games and all of these big moments. The Red River rivalry. Ours are beating me up today, but I'm fighting back. The Egg Bowl coming up later. The Lane Kiffin Bowl coming up later. But you know where you can go to get all your ticketing needs. Game Time. Folks, I'm hyped about this because when you think about what makes college football beautiful, the pageantry, the excellence, all that, the biggest thing is the fans. And you can be right there in the experience where it happens, but thanks to Game Time. There is nothing, and when I say nothing, I mean nothing, like being in one of these stadiums. And imagine if you could go to a place where, you know, normally we worry about, oh, I got to get it early. But Game Time allows you to wait, procrastinate a little bit, because I promise you, if those tickets are still available, the closer you get, the prices go down. Yes, you heard that right. The prices go down. All you got to do is go to Game Time Picks. Go to the new feature on Game Time called Game Time Picks. And it's not just sports, by the way. Even if you aren't into football, even if you aren't into basketball, every single type of live event that has ticketing, Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite events easier than ever. It helps you filter out the fluff to only show incredible deals on great seats to events that you want to go to. So there's no wasted time on miscellaneous events or on seats that you would never look at in a million years. All you got to do is pick an upcoming game and go to the app, browse through the seats via Game Time Picks, and then you can find the deal. I am telling you right now, if you use the Game Time app, you're putting yourself in a great position to be exactly where you want to be. Like they said on Hamilton, you'll be in the room where it happens, okay? Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Again, terms apply, but create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time.
Kitten, I mean, like we said, it was an incredible weekend of college football. The Red River rivalry was fun for a few minutes, and then it was more fun to me because me and Jay had that bet going on, which the next time we see Jay, he better be wearing that orange. So we'll see. We'll see.
Don't worry. We called him right now. We putting out an APB for him because he's ducking the smoke.
Yeah, where'd he go?
He's ducking the burnt orange. He's ducking the burnt orange. No, we're kidding. He'll be back in no time. He'll be back short.
Yep. So Oregon defeats Ohio State in what may have been the best game of the year so far. Yeah, I think it was. So to me, I think what Oregon did was extremely impressive. And I picked Oregon to win. But the way they did it, I mean, Dan Lanning pointed at Ryan Day, and what did I say when we were previewing this game? It's like, I don't think Ryan Day is that good of a coach. I think he's got a great situation. And I think what happened on Saturday kind of proved that. I think both of these teams are college football playoff teams, but I think Oregon proved that they're a contender for a national title, and Ohio State's just going to be a team that gets invited to the dance.
I agree with what you said in the first part, and then we went off the rails on a crazy train in the second part.
Great.
Okay. I agree with you that this was a clash of the Titans in every sense of the word. This was a game that to me was equal to, if not better, than Bama, Georgia. This was a game where you saw two of the premier brands playing some premier football, and you said to yourself, this is what college football looks like when it's at its best. I don't think anybody can disagree with that. I don't think anybody in their right mind can disagree with that. However, the assertion that Ohio State is just going to be around kind of, we're going to go, but first round exit incoming, I think that that's a little foolhardy to say, because there are multiple reasons why I'm looking at this team and saying they're real contenders. Number one, that game was so close, and it was played in Austin, right? They say that home field advantage gives you about, 3 points?
They say.
How much was this game won by?
It was close. What was the exact score?
It was 36 to 30.
1 point. It was 32-31. Yeah.
Okay, 32-31. I'm sorry, 32-31. If you're at a neutral field, even if we cut that in half and say it just gives you 1.5 to be at home in Austin, does Ohio State not win that game next time? So we don't know what's going to happen in the Big Ten championship when these two Titans clash again.
Yeah.
If Ohio State ends up with the bye week, how impactful could that be for them in terms of having that first round bye and being in a situation where they get to scout out whoever they're playing a week early without having any interruptions, right? And then we go beyond that and say, even if Oregon wins the rematch, I don't think that Ohio State team showed me Achilles heels big enough, showed me weaknesses large enough, showed me things that I believe any playoff team can exploit that very easily, to the point where I say, hey, listen, more power to you for getting to the dance, more power to you for showing up, but you're not going to take the prettiest girl home. That's not going to be you after what I saw. I didn't see that at all from either team, because even if Howard gets his slide off in time and they end up kicking a miraculous field goal to win that game, I'm still looking at Oregon saying that's a damn good game. Oregon started off the season stumbling out the blocks, struggling with Idaho a little bit and all that, but they have gotten it together in a massive and meaningful way. So I don't look at this game as an indictment on either team. I look at this game as a credit to both, saying, damn it, y'all both playing great ball. Damn it, I want to see both of y'all in the playoffs to see what you can do.
And that's what we talked about before this game, Kenton. We said, look, like, does this game really matter? Because we all kind of believe that these teams are going to be in the playoff. And that's kind of what it confirmed, is both of these teams are probably top 5 teams. I don't care where Ohio State's ranked after losing this game. They probably shouldn't have dropped. Honestly, we'll talk more about, the top 25 later. But if they would have stayed put, I would not have pushed back against it at all, because these teams are both worthy of it. If it was still a 4-team playoff, I think you got to talk about these two teams being in it. They both deserve it. No question about it. But I do think Ohio State's roster is one of the best in college football, and I don't think Ryan Day is going to be able to get all the maximum potential out of it. That's all I'm saying about Ohio State. Until Ryan Day does it at the highest level, I'm going to say, I need to see it first.
Here's my only problem with that. I think that I agree with you that about the second part, Ryan Day. I'm not sure.
Let's see it.
I'm not sure. Yeah. But what I do know is that roster is that talented that he may not even need to get the best performance out of everybody when it matters most for them to win a game or two in the playoff. And I know that sounds absurd to say, But when you think about the landscape of a 12-game playoff, right, we are talking about Ole Miss or LSU potentially getting into the playoff. If one of those teams were to get in, do you think an Ohio State rolling at about 85% clip loses that game? I don't think so.
Because in that situation, it would be in Columbus, right?
And that's what I'm saying. I don't think that they lose that game. So I struggle to come up with, hey, this team, because of Ryan Day, will be held back from being a contender. I struggle with that. Now, would I say that Ryan Day keeps me from crowning them already? Absolutely. Absolutely. I think if they have a great coach in right now, I think we're already saying it's Texas, it's Ohio State, and it's everybody else. Unfortunately, they don't. So it's like Ohio State is, I guess, relegated, if that's even the right word to say here, to that group of like, these are all real contenders, but there are some questions floating around this team.
Oregon's path is interesting. So they play Purdue, whatever. Illinois could be a little tricky, but it's in Eugene. If it was in Illinois, I'd say, hey, let's look at this one. But in Eugene, I'm not there. But they head to Michigan. And I just kind of wonder if that's going to be anything. And then for whatever reason, at the end of the season, Washington has kind of had Oregon's number as of late. But if they can take care of those 2 or 3 games, like this could be a team, depending on what happens with Texas. I mean, they're going to finish number 1 or number 2 at the end of the regular season.
Yeah, absolutely. Oregon's path is a wonderful path. They have done the heavy lifting, right? You have done the really, really hard part of this, but now you have to do the kind of hard part. And what's that? It's showing up every single week. It's not reading your press clippings. It's staying focused on keeping the main thing, because it's easy. After a game like this, people weren't talking about this game as much as I thought they should have coming into it. Coming out of it, everybody's saying, holy hell, this was great football. This was great football. So when you look at that moment and you come out the winner, you come out victorious in a great football moment, all of a sudden you may say, man, I guess I am that good of a passer, huh? Man, I guess we are the fastest receiving core in the country, huh? That Jeremiah Smith kid, he's good, but he ain't got nothing for us. You start to have those moments. So I think that the rest of this season, and I say this about teams when they're really good or when their schedule is not as good. The rest of the season about Oregon's countenance up until the postseason, really. Because the Big Ten championship, I think they'll be tested again. And then, of course, you got the playoff where, hey, that's not a test. That's the whole deal. That's the big enchilada. So I look at this and I say, how well can these 18 to 23-year-olds focus in for Oregon? Can you be different? Can you be exceptional? Can you be a best self or at least a good enough self to beat everybody in front of you?
Yeah. There's a team that I think is ranked way too low in the top 25, and I'm sure you feel the same way about a few squads. So I want to jump into that in just a moment. This is the 3-point stance. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. FanDuel's America's #1 sportsbook. And hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. When you get that hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more, all on the same page where you place your bets. You can get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Alabama at Tennessee. Alabama, a 3-point favorite, according to our friends at FanDuel. A tricky one. LSU favored by just 2.5 on that road trip to Fayetteville. And of course, Georgia at #1 Texas this weekend. Texas, a 3.5-point favorite. If you feel passionate about any of those lines, head over to FanDuel and put your money where your mouth is. That's at FanDuel.com. FanDuel is the official sports betting partner of the Locked On Podcast Network. Kenton, final few minutes on today's edition of the 3-point stance. BYU is ranked 13 in the latest top 25 poll. And every time I look at this BYU team, Kenton, the eye test, they don't have the resume, but you can only play who you play. They look like a top 10 team to me.
By what metric do they not have the resume? They beat a SMU team that's now ranked. They beat a Kansas State. They beat Kansas State down. Yep. They didn't just this is a pretty good game. That was non-competitive. They had Avery Johnson in a spin cycle for a majority of that game. So what metric are we using to keep this team outside of the top 10? What teams are we looking at in the top 10 that have losses to teams that we're like, oh, what's going on there? What's happening there? If you are to tell me that, hey, the games have to matter and the games have to mean something, even during this 12-team expanded playoff, all I would ask is this. Of all the top 10 teams, right? We're not even going to go with 12 and 11. Of all the top 10 teams, who do you think has a much more impressive resume than BYU right now? If you had to say off the top of your head, just give me 3 to 4 teams. Hey, well, I know this team has a more impressive resume.
Texas, Oregon, Ohio State, based off of what we just said, even though they've lost, I still think they're a better team. Miami, I think, should certainly be up there.
So just let me give me just a quick second here.
Go ahead.
I love Ohio State. I said that they look like one of the best teams in the nation. I said that they look like an amazing team, all that good stuff. Resume-wise, do they have the same resume or better than BYU? Because let me read off. They're 5-1 with a really good loss, a damn good loss. I can't reward a good loss above a good win. I can't do that. Akron, Western Michigan, Marshall, Michigan State, Iowa. Those are the teams that they've beaten so far this year. BYU has a better resume than that. And I just told you how much I think about Ohio State. BYU's resume has to matter. The games have to matter. And you're absolutely right, Zach. This team is better than 13. Yep. This team, and I know that Drake Kamaru Toll is somewhere smiling and laughing, hearing us talk about him like this. But in all seriousness, BYU is the Rodney Dangerfield of college football right now. Those kids may not do all the drinking and partying that most of our schools do, but damn it, they're playing some good ball and we need to acknowledge it.
Yeah, Notre Dame's ranked ahead of them. They should not be. I don't think Clemson should be ranked ahead of them. I don't think Iowa State should be ranked ahead of them. LSU, after that win to Ole Miss, I'm okay with where they are, but I think this BYU team should be 9th or 10th when it's all said and done.
And I 100% agree. To me, it's a struggle to say this team should be ranked that far back because, again, I look in front of them and I say, who has the resume? Who has the resume to say, hey, we have played better teams and we have beaten better teams than what you all have beaten? We can say, oh, BYU's resume doesn't look that good, but I would simply say, okay, great. Who else has that resume or better? Two ranked teams, two teams that are in the top 25 this week, they have wins against. 2. Mm-hmm. What else do you want them to do? How much else do you want them to do in terms of getting that national respect?
Ken, give me your thoughts on Penn State being ranked as the number 3 team in college football. I'll let you go.
Oh, boy. We do this every year. We do this every year with Penn State. We do this every year. And here's the thing.
USC tried to help us, by the way. They tried to help you.
But that is how I know. That USC game is how I know that they're not the real deal. Okay? I'm sure I've told this story before. Maybe the listeners have heard it, but I'm going to tell it again anyway because that's what this is. Okay? You come on this show, you go hear me tell the same story 1,000 times. We like it being a marriage. Anywho, I would come home with a 3.0. My sister would come home with a 3.0. My mom would tell my sister, great job. You did it. You crushed it. You knocked it out the park. And you know what she would tell me when I came home with a 3.0? You think just did enough to get by, huh? You think you did enough to shut me up. And I said, Mom, I got the same grades as her. What's the problem? And she said, I expect better. I expect more of you. Therefore, I'm not going to give you the same praise I get. She tried her best to get that 3.0. And by the way, that's not to say my sister ain't intelligent. She's the first person in our family with a master's degree. The woman is plenty intelligent. Love you, Kyler. I know you listen to this. But with that in mind, I look at that and I say, the fact that we were even looking at an unranked game against USC, who else in the top 5 would that be a big game for? Would that be a big game for Texas right now?
No.
Would that be a big game for Georgia right now?
No.
Would that be a big game for Ohio State right now?
No.
They're the only team. They're the only ones that we're saying to ourselves, oh, yeah, that's going to be a big game. Oregon going out to USC, nobody would say, oh, man, that's the game. That's the game. Miami going out to USC, nobody would say that. The fact that there is this, has James Franklin finally got over the hump to win a big game against a team that came in with 2 losses and ain't beat nobody all damn year, lost to a Michigan team that threw 12 pass attempts, and you're telling me that's a big game? That tells me you're a fraud because people are looking at you saying, you ought to whoop the wheels off them boys. You ought to destroy the men of Troy.
Their schedule does heat up a little bit. They go to Wisconsin. I'm not too sold on Wisconsin, but on the road, that could be interesting. but they play Ohio State. They play Washington. They play at Minnesota, who's been tricky so far this year. This is a team that I think is going to have a loss or two, and it's going to be interesting to see how the playoff committee views them after they do have a loss or two.
I'm willing to bet my bottom dollar this is how it shakes out.
Okay.
And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. And hey, I'll own it.
Okay.
I think it's going to come out like this. They're going to get the wheels whooped off them by Ohio State. They're going to beat everybody else in the Big Ten. They're going to skate into the playoff without having played anybody except Ohio State, who beats them handily, or maybe even they'll keep it close. They'll keep it like a 10-point game or so. Ohio State wins that football game, and they walk into the playoffs, and they get bludgeoned. They get bludgeoned by whoever it is that they run into, because this team is – I have seen this song and dance with Penn State so many times. I've seen it.
Yeah.
This is not a new – and I don't like bringing the past into things. I really don't. I would love to say, hey, you know what? Penn State does have a ranked win. They are undefeated. They are those things. And I don't, for anybody else, I don't bring the past into it. I don't. But you make special exceptions for special situations. And this is one of those special situations where I have been fooled too many times. I have believed, oh, this is Penn State's time. Too many times. I've said, oh, Michigan kind of looks rough coming in this game. Too many times with Penn State. And then I walk out saying, well, damn, did you pinch him? I'm tired of it. I don't believe in this team until they show me otherwise.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you've kind of sold me, because I was going into this saying like, oh, Penn State's going to beat USC and it's going to be a statement. Then I watched the game and they won, but I felt kind of gross watching it. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, to me, I'm with you. You have sold me. You have changed my position on this. I think Penn State is a pretender until proven otherwise. Kitten, that was another one in the books, my friend. Be sure to like this video. Be sure to subscribe, whether you're watching on YouTube or if you're listening on audio. Be sure to subscribe. Really helps the show out. For your second listen, go check out our buddy, Spencer McLaughlin, host of Locked On College Football, on this very same channel or feed. Until next time, he's Kenton Gibbs. I'm Zach Blackerby. This has been the 3 Point Stance.